Recording in progress. Cool. So my name is Casey Stevens. I am the National Communications Director for Omega Phi Alpha. As I put in the chat, I'm an alum of Phi Chapter at Arizona State University, and I've been volunteering nationally with Omega Phi Alpha since 2010. On and off, had a few off years there, here and there, but I've been serving as Communications Director since 2021, 2020, 2021, 2020. Crazy. But this is something near and dear to my heart. I previously served as kind of what we now call our merchandise coordinator. We have called them insignia coordinator in the past. So I'm very, very well versed in all of the information our wonderful partners at Affinity are going to present for you all today. But again, thank you so much for joining us today. And I'm just going to hand it off to Affinity and let you guys take the reins. If anybody has questions, please feel free to use the chat. We'll probably have a little time at the end for some questions too, but I'm happy to answer anything via chat or however this might work. So thank you guys, and thanks Affinity. Thanks Dan and Eric for being here with us. Take it away.
Eric, you start us off.
Great. Well, yes, thank you so much for having us today. My name is Eric, and I am, my specific position within Affinity Licensing is Omega Phi Alpha's client representative. So what that means is I am the brand liaison, the licensing liaison between Affinity and Omega Phi Alpha. And if you're not familiar with us and who we are, Affinity handles the trademark licensing aspect of Omega Phi Alpha, and we manage your brands. We help with running your e-commerce website platform and a bunch of other things that we'll actually get into. But today we wanted to come to you all and help share some of the knowledge that we have in terms of your brand management and image protection, and also how to best get your designs approved and for you all to protect the trademarks of Omega Phi Alpha.
Great. Well, thank you, Eric. And we're honored, truly honored to be here. So thank you for the invitation, Casey. My name is Dan Shaver. I'm the founder of Affinity. I started the business 26 years ago and was working for my fraternity headquarters and realized that there was really an important job out there, that there were a lot of companies that were actually exploiting the use of Greek organizations' marks. They were looking for any sense of profit, and in the process really undermined and did some damage to some of the Greek image. And so when we talk about trademark licensing, our very common question is, well, why does it really even matter? Does it get in the way of me buying what I want? If it does, I don't know if I care about it. And so we really wanted to come together and put together a slide deck that really talked a little bit more educationally about what are trademarks? Why do they matter? Why is it so important to control them? And when we thought of an image and we thought of a theme for this presentation, we really think of like artwork, and that it's really fluid. Artwork is beautiful and fluid, and honestly, over time, can lose its distinctiveness if it's not actually controlled. And so we're going to talk about today is how do we basically manage our image? How do we manage what people know about Omega Phi Alpha? Here you're this incredible organization that was founded in 1967, and you've got this robust membership and you're doing incredibly important work. And how do we make sure that the public knows that? And it's not done by accident. And I think Casey will say, as a communications director, it requires a ton of work and a lot of intention. So we're going to go through today, and Eric's going to drive and head to the next slide for us. And we're going to talk really, first of all, we're going to teach you a little bit about trademarks. And so a lot of times people often wonder what is in fact a trademark. And it is the legal definition of it, or the official definition, is a word, a phrase, a symbol, or a design that identifies and distinguishes the source of the good from one party or another. So when you go to the store and if you want to buy a product, whether it's from Anthropologie or Lululemon, knowing exactly where that product comes from, and you associate that with one particular source identifier, is what they say in law. And so what would happen is if companies didn't have the ability to distinguish one hotel brand from the next, people wouldn't be able to understand and get used to the quality. There's a big, huge difference between an Omni and a Holiday Inn. And those companies who invest a lot of money in making sure there's a full experience need to have some differentiation there. And so like buying a watch or a hat or a sweatshirt, which is your property, right? You look around your room and you've got a desk and you've got a computer screen and you've got a cell phone. That's your property. Those are tangible assets. Well, what's interesting is trademarks are no different. Trademarks are more intellectual property, but they're still property. Omega Phi Alpha owns that property. When you were founded, your founders put together these symbols that reflected your ideals and charged you to act in a certain way to benefit society. And then what we're trying to do is protect that. We're trying to protect that experience. And so trademarks, like property, if you have a house and you don't maintain it, it can fall apart. Trademarks need to be maintained. They have to be protected. And so here are some very common examples, right? When we think of trademarks, Disney obviously comes to mind, but it's not just the word Disney. You've got Disneyland Resort, that's an official trademark. You've got Fast Pass, that's a trademark. They and Disney wanted to be known for, hey, this is something unique to us. We put a lot of money into the technology to walk up, hit a button, spit out a ticket, say you can come back. We're going to call it Fast Pass. While they don't own the concept of getting a ticket to skip line, they own the trademark of it. They own the name of it. If all of a sudden Six Flags came out with their own Fast Pass, it would diminish the value of that concept and undermine the amount of money and effort they put into designing it. And Disney wants people, when we talk about image, Disney wants people to know them as fun and friendly, family friendly and imaginative, right? Walt Disney is one of the most, imaginative people of our history. When we think of Starbucks, we think of, that iconic logo. We can even think of another trademark, the size of the cup, venti. Starbucks claims is within their channel of trade, they claim that term. Frappuccino is a great example, another trademark, and they're known for delicious, reliable, convenient, maybe expensive coffee. It's my daily routine. So that's one of the reasons why this is on here. And then Chanel. Obviously, Chanel, we see that. And here's what's also interesting is a lot of times we see knockoff products of Chanel, right? So if you ever go to New York City or if you travel overseas, you're going to find a lot of what looks like on the street, people selling products, and they try really hard. Chanel is known as super quality, classic, feminine, really high end. And there's some profiteers out there that are trying really hard to sell knockoff products in order to try to exploit this brand that people have come to associate with really first class. And that creates a great challenge for Chanel. So what's fascinating here is that we all see these symbols and we know that they're trademarks and no one questions it. And I'll just give you a quick little education on some of this stuff. A registered R behind a trademark means it's registered with the US Patent and Trademark Office. A TM means they're claiming ownership of the trademark, but it might not be registered with the US Patent and Trademark Office. So every once in a while, you'll see something. If you see a circle C, that means it's copyright protected. And copyright protected with music and art and photography, all of that is using the exact replica. And so copyrights protect artists and photographers and all sorts of creators of art. And so these are great public examples of trademarks. Now, when we think of Omega Phi Alpha, these are some of the symbols that are absolutely known for your organization. Some trace back to your founding, some have happened since then, and some are been iterations on your trademarks. They've updated branding, but these are the brand images that come to mind when somebody's associating with your organization. And so what's interesting is what we just saw on the other page, these trademarks are equally property. And while they are specific to your organization, they also are equal property and they have to be maintained. And so when we look at historic and current, our goal is to make sure that there's unique consistency in trademark use. Go ahead, Eric. Now, the real question is, why is this important, Dan? And you might not think this is hugely important, but to an organization you signed up for, and you said, I want to be a part of this sisterhood that's committed to these causes. And in doing that, you're signing up also to make sure that you're protecting the organization for life, and you're protecting it so that you can continue to grow. And so trademarks are important because they are the identifier. They are the visual identifier that connects someone to your organization. While you may be a member and you carry out the mission of the organization, wearing the brand tells the public that you're part of something important. And if the public begins to associate that brand with something not consistent with the mission and values, it can absolutely create significant problems long-term, not just from a PR perspective, not just from an image perspective, but also from a protection of your mark's perspective. And so what's really important here is these symbols that you have, whether it's the Greek letters, whether it's the corporate icon, whether it's all, the coat of arms or the crest, all of those things point back to your reputation, your values, and your heritage. And so the other piece here is, if you don't, the only rule, there's not a lot of rules for trademark owners. The only rule of a trademark owner really is that you maintain it and that you control it, because there's a risk. And there's a lot of great examples out there. For an example, Kleenex. Kleenex used to be a trademark. Aspirin used to be a trademark. There's a lot out there that are trademarks. And over time, if the public begins to use and become too associated with it, it loses its distinctiveness, it becomes diluted or generic, and that trademark owner loses rights to that trademark. And so what's fascinating here is you'll hear people talk about inline skates. Well, when I was young and growing up, we called them rollerblades. Well, everyone just called every single inline skate rollerblade. Oh, that's why you're rollerblading. Are you going rollerblading? That's a trademark. Same thing with Jeep. Are you driving a Jeep? And you'll find a lot of times on the commercials, they'll clarify that, hey, Jeep is a trademark of Daimler Chrysler. You've got to control your trademark. If the public begins to associate too readily or too commonly with your marks, without the levels of control, without the quality control, it can become diluted, and it can be potentially, the next slide, you can end up abandoning it. And so all of this that your founders created in the 1960s, all the work that you've done, the more than, 13,000 hours of service. I think it's even higher than that, but you guys have this huge service. It's a big number, isn't it? It's a huge number of service hours. Think about protecting that, protecting what we really come to think of when we think of Omega Phi Alpha. The goal here is to make sure that that doesn't become abandoned. We don't erase our history, but that we build upon our history and we make it stronger and stronger than ever. So it's more than just buying products. It's more than just going out and shopping for something super cute. It's really about making sure that you're protecting that history and building upon it so that you can, yes, go out and change our world in a very positive way with more than 15,000 service hours per semester. I mean, my goodness, that's more than 30,000 a year. That is so important. And so what's important for you guys is to recognize there's a couple of rights of Omega Phi Alpha, a couple of rights that we've got to think through. And again, it's more than just the t-shirt. It's more than just the cute tote bag, or it's really about making sure that we do it the right way, making sure we protect the brand, making sure that we protect the rights and the responsibility to own those trademarks. And again, when we imagine, what if anyone in town could use your brand or use your letters? Any other competing organization came on campus and said, we really like it. We really want to use the same name. Or a local bar decides we're going to call ourselves the Omega Phi Alpha Pub. Well, you know what? They would be devastated, because what would happen is the public would begin to associate with something that's not you. The great news is you're a part of a big community of organizations that are actively enforcing their brand. Affinity represents more than 125 different Greek organizations, national and international Greek organizations, in the quest of protecting their brand. And in that process, we bring to bear a number of resources, a number of opportunities for you to find really amazing products. And so our goal is not just to come in and say, oh, it's about control and it's about restriction. That's not our goal. Eric's going to be the far more friendly version of me, and he's going to talk about opportunities to get great products and to get your products approved. But from a legal perspective, we've got to take care of the legal piece first so that we can then go out and create opportunities for growth, opportunities for brand extension, and that we can meet the needs of your organization and your members. And I will tell you, we at Affinity are very interested in hearing what you want. Or if there's a product that you haven't been able to find and that you want, you can reach out either to Casey or reach out to Eric directly, but we want to know. And what we do is go out and hustle to find those products so that we can bring them to your market. And then I think this is maybe one of my last slides before I turn it over to my colleague, Eric. But what is licensing? Everyone hears about affinity licensing. What is licensing? And I'll look at it. It's just the legal process by which companies can get access to use your trademarks. So Omega Phi Alpha isn't out there printing everything in the garage or out there, building products. We actually go out and find companies who produce high quality merchandise, but there needs to be a legal agreement. And what we're able to do is that legal agreement, no different than a lease that you might have with an apartment complex, that legal agreement defines use of property. And so when Omega Phi Alpha works through Affinity to get somebody licensed, they agree to certain terms, which says that they're going to honor the quality of the merchandise. So when you buy something licensed, you are protected. If you get something and it's terrible quality and you're very disappointed, and that licensee doesn't take it back, contact us. We will follow up with them and say, no. You promised a quality product. We licensed you to produce a quality product, and we can hold them accountable to the legal terms of quality. So that's really important. You're protected as a result of licensing. The other piece of it is it's a legal agreement that outlines permissions. It says that they acknowledge the trademark rights of Omega Phi Alpha, and they agree they'll never challenge the trademark rights. That's really important. And then it is also a tool for us to extend into other products and services. And as a result of licensing, we're able to keep some of the abuse and the abandonment and slander and prejudice and mischaracterization. And sometimes people will do, silly designs to try to exploit the brand. We're able to prevent those on the outside because any commercial use of your brand is allowed to be protected under federal trademark law. And so that's where Affinity comes in as your advocate that helps you build your brand, extend your brand, and ensure that your image is well protected for many, many, many more years to come. Now, Eric, I think, is going to jump in and talk to you about how to move forward with licensing. So I'm just going to say, just remember this before I turn it over. Manage the trademarks, important. Protect your history and value, create revenue for the organization, improve your old image, and secure the quality and services for your sisters for years to come. Those are the key reasons why licensing is important. Now we're going to get into how do you use licensing for your benefit.
Great. Thank you so much, Dan. So now that you all have heard on the why and why do we have trademark licensing, I'm going to go over the how and basically how to get your products approved, how to make sure that it's in line with your brand, your trademarks, and guidelines that really keep Omega Phi Alpha's marks protected. So part of my job is being that brand advocate for Omega Alpha, and I will front load. I will take that brunt of the communication with your vendors and basically enforcing your marks and making sure that's protected. So day in and day out, I'm vetting all these designs that you all are creating and that the vendors are creating, and then making sure it's in line with Omega Phi Alpha. And with myself being a member of a fraternity, I had that experience. I understand that sense of pride and that sense of ownership with my organization's marks, and I still do to this day. So I understand the importance of that. So with that, when I'm vetting these designs, I'm reviewing and approving your creative designs, and then checking for overall just appropriateness. We want to make sure that, as Dan mentioned, that none of that silliness is really tarnishing the brand of Omega Phi Alpha. So I'm checking for these pop culture references, making sure they're appropriate. Obviously, we want to avoid alcohol, drugs, profanity, any derogatory terms being used in any inappropriate ways. But then also on the flip side, making sure that your nicknames are used correctly, and that no one's out there is calling you incorrect nicknames and not mistaking you for any other organizations. So with that, there's also the logos we check, and making sure that the branding is up to date on that with the colors and the outlines and official logos and unofficial logos. Where do we draw the line with that? And just making sure, vetting that all the designs are up to your organization's standards. So here we have more examples of your official logos and your fonts. Now, these for your licensed vendors, I mentioned before, licensees, your licensed vendors, they have complete access to this. So when you are using a licensed vendor, and when a licensed vendor goes through and decides to create a design using your official trademarks, they have access to the colors, the fonts. They have a whole brand guideline that is accessible to them through us, also on your website. So there really is no excuse for them to utilize your marks incorrectly. But in the events that they do, that's what I'm here for. That's what Casey's here for, just to make sure that that is all within compliance. Now, when it comes to your official coat of arms and your crests and other official logos, we are also checking to see how it is affixed on certain products. So for instance, you'll see on the slides here, it says coat of arms is only approved on stoles, but not allowed on any other type of products. And whereas the crest is allowed on all types of products. So shirts, shorts, hooded sweatshirts, but no modifications to the crest are allowed. So we're making sure that when these logos and when these trademarks are affixed on your products that you want to have created, we're making sure they're used correctly. But that, that also comes with, a responsibility from your side, but then also ours. So we're here to, back you up. We're here as a safety net, and to make sure that your products are maintaining the integrity of your brand. So another great resource that we've been working with Casey on is this OPhiA.com website. So basically, you may be asking, well, how do I see and how do I make sure that your products that you're purchasing are from a licensed vendor? Well, good news for you is that we have this main website for Omega Phi Alpha, and it's personalized, completely customized to your organization. So all the vendors and all the products on that website are licensed. So you don't have to worry when you're searching the internet. You don't have to worry about, oh, is this vendor licensed? Or are they not? Is this, are they going to fall in line with the brand standards that we have outlined for our organization? You do not have to worry when you go through OPhiA.com, because, like I said, I'll go through, I review these designs, and once they get approved, they're posted to that, to OPhiA.com. So again, all vendors on this site are licensed. And another great point about this website is that when you're looking at a vendor, say you're looking at one specific vendor trying to create a t-shirt for one of your philanthropic events, but you decide to go to their website, right? They might have other fraternities or other sororities on that website, and it's hard to find the exact product you're looking for. So the good news about with OPhiA.com is that this is only for Omega Phi Alpha. So there are, two great pros to this website that we highly recommend you utilize, and you can for sure find licensed products and licensed vendors through. Now, moving forward, so these are just some main points that I want you all to, keep in mind, that when you're going through and you're looking for, products for your events, to make sure that you're choosing to purchase licensed products, because again, as Dan mentioned, it's really vital to uphold that integrity for your licensed trademarks and your brand. So then moving forward, you want to make sure that you are talking to your vendors and double checking that they're officially licensed through us, and they're approved through us and using your marks correctly. And you can do that by creating awareness with your sisters and making sure, you know, talking to your chair positions, talking to your executive boards, making sure, hey, are you using a licensed vendor? Is this a licensed vendor? You know, where did you hear about them? And, you know, we have these multiple websites that I'll you know, reference later on. But the main thing is this is all in efforts to preserve that integrity and to really amplify the impact and how you're seen throughout your Greek community, on your campuses, and throughout the public as well. So this is your organization. You share its values, you share its ideals of Omega Phi Alpha. So you know, it comes down to you to make sure that it's protected and it lasts, you know, for the amount of time that we're here on this earth. So, yeah. And then Dan also touched on a little bit about this, but another takeaway for you all is just to be aware of, you know, be conscientious of other parties' intellectual property rights. So, you know, it'd be my recommendation, our recommendation, to really stick to original creative designs. And I know you all are creative out there and can create really cool trends with certain designs. So that is definitely the best way to make sure you're not, you know, impeding or stepping on any intellectual property rights when creating these designs for your products. And then another point is design plagiarism. So one thing we would, you know, want to caution you all with is we understand that this is a market, that there is a competitive market out there between vendors. So, you know, say you received a design from vendor one, and they're kind of charging a little too much for your budget. And you end up finding another vendor that is going to charge you way less for the exact same design. Well, you know, there's actually potential potential legal repercussions that could happen with that. So we want to try to avoid that to your best ability. And again, coming back to that, creating your own original creative design. So yes, those are some words of caution. And then, so you might be asking yourself, well, how do we know a vendor is licensed? So again, as previously stated, we have the shop.ophia.com website. All vendors there, all products there are licensed with Omega Phi Alpha. But then we also have some other you know, parameters set in place. So make sure to be on the lookout for the Affinity Licensed Product Seal. So vendors who are licensed with us, they should have that present either on their website or within the product listing, you know, when you see the different images of the product, or it could also be within their product description. So that should be present. And we also have teams, part of our company is enforcement and making sure that these vendors are utilizing that Affinity Licensed Product Seal. So we're making sure that that is being used and happening out there. But then you also have the affinitylicensing.com/product site. So when you go to that website, you can also see which vendors are licensed with Omega Phi Alpha. And then we also, lastly, we have this great official Greek shopper program. So in order to promote and incentivize, you know, using licensed products and licensed vendors, we want to share this with you. So you have an opportunity when you go onto this website down here on the bottom of the screen, you apply, you know, and we'll go through and we'll read through your application. But basically what it is when you or your chapter or your chair positions are using licensed products or using a licensed vendor, you know, take that receipt, keep that receipt. You'll share that with us through these forms. You'll share with us the receipt of that order and showing us, okay, these are the licensed Greek products that we purchased. And then from there, there's a point system which can help you get cash rewards. So basically sharing with us, telling us that you are using a licensed vendor, a licensed product, there are benefits to that. So again, if you visit this website, you can apply, you can learn more, and then start getting cash rewards for that. So lastly, as we wrap up, you as the member, I just wanted to really echo that you all ultimately have the power and the control to protect the integrity of your organization's marks. So this is what we do for a living, and we want to make sure that this knowledge is shared with you all and that you are fully equipped to move forward and share this with your chapters, with your sisters, and have a very profitable and very healthy relationship with your trademarks.
Eric, if you can go back and if you can grab if we take any questions, if you can go back and grab that link at some point and put it in the chat.
Yep.
We want to make sure that if anybody wants to sign up for this program, what you can do is, again, you get points for sharing receipts. We're able to look at that and confirm the products are being reported by the licensees, and then you can earn free points towards products. And so it's a great program. It's easy. It's free for you. It's already what you're doing, whether it's an individual order, whether it's a group order from a chapter, just any receipt. And it actually, you don't even have to worry whether it's licensed or not. Just any receipt of any merchandise you've purchased that's Omega Phi Alpha, you can share that and get points. We'll do the process of confirming whether they're licensed or not licensed. All right, there you go. Perfect. So the link is there in the system. Anybody else have any questions? I mean, this is a great opportunity to really wonder, hey, is this protected? What about this use? What about that use? Use of other intellectual property. If we're using somebody else's design because we think it's super clever and cute, where do our legal rights begin or end? If there's any questions that you've got, this would be a great chance to ask. We're here for you. And we want to make this as educational as possible.
Dan, I'm going to ask a question that I typically get in my position is, how can our chapters potentially, I don't want to say expedite the design process. I know the design approval process can be quite cumbersome, especially if, a design comes through and it's not on brand or not, it's potentially using some of that, alternate IP. So it can take some back and forth and stuff. So can you touch, Eric or Dan, whomever, can you touch on kind of what that timeline looks like, and like how far in advance should folks be really like planning orders, especially when they're, working with those licensed vendors?
It's an excellent question. And it's a question we get. Affinity represents a lot of organizations, about 180 plus total organizations within our network and through our software. And we've built really industry-leading software to make it very simple for licensees. Every licensee is required to submit their designs for approval. Affinity approves those within 2 to 3 days on average. Now, if you're ever last second and you're like, you know what, we need it by Friday and it's Wednesday, you can say to your licensed vendor, hey, would you mind expediting this for us? And that vendor pays literally $3.75 and jumps to the very top of that 2,000 submission line. The reason we don't do that for everybody is because we have to figure out how to prioritize the designs that come in. And so for a small fee, we've hired an extra person who then sits and monitors the expedited designs. So it's no different than anything else. If you want to expedite something else, you pay for FedEx, and that is a huge cost. But if you want to mail it during the regular postage, you're going to go with what the U.S. Postage Service does. So you can ask your licensee, hey, listen, we understand that it's a small added fee. Can you bump that to the top? Can you do that expedited? And they can do that straight through the gateway. That comes to Eric immediately. We usually approve that within 12 hours. So it's very fast. Otherwise, you're going to expect 2 to 3 days. So it's not long. If you're giving yourself several weeks in advance of an event, you should be perfectly fine. A lot of that, though, is the licensee. You want to ask at the very front end, hey, once we get you final approval, how much time will it take you to produce? Ask that question when you are negotiating with them. Find that out ahead of time. You don't want all of a sudden to realize, oh, it's going to take us a week once you get them final approval. Sometimes you have to say, is that a product you already have in inventory? Or do you have to go ship the blank item before you embellish or logo the product? So just a couple of helpful tips to speed up your process. And as Casey has said, if you make sure that you're staying far away from anything that might blur the brand distinctiveness, don't go anywhere close to alcohol reference. Don't go anywhere close to maybe a pop culture reference that might be a little controversial. that might take time for people to think through and figure out, oh, where does this, it's not a no, but it might take longer for us to get to a yes. So if you're really looking for a quick turnaround, stay as close to the brand standards as you possibly can, and that will move through very fast.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for that. I know folks who are watching this in attendance right now, I sometimes get those questions from Eric on whether something is allowed, isn't allowed in reviewing designs. So, you know, sometimes if there are those questions that come up, I get to see those designs and help, you know, establish that best practice for our brand moving forward. You know, I work with Eric on establishing those brand standards for OPhiA all the time. We are always making some changes, making improvements, you know, making sure that we're all on the same page. And just really in the best interest of you guys to make sure that you guys can get your products faster, get them through the approval system faster, everything, so that you guys can get what you want when you want it for the events that you're hosting, all of that. So I put my email in the chat. If you guys ever have any questions about anything, feel free to email me. I'm really responsive. And, you know, if I have questions, I have no problem reaching out to Eric and the rest of the team over at Affinity to answer any questions that you guys might have on any of this. I also popped the link in there for you to look at all of the licensed vendors that we have. And it's also available on OPhiA portal. So under the merchandise folder in all the files. So very exciting. Any other questions from all of our friends here in attendance? If not, totally fine. But if you do ever have questions, you know where to go. Alyssa, go for it.
Okay, so I know in like the past there's been a bit of confusion in our chapter on like when we're ordering like shirts and stuff for events on when it's something that the chapter covers versus when it's something that individual like sisters need to like pay for. So I was wondering if maybe you could expand on that a little bit.
In terms of let me understand, is it in terms of getting the permission, or is it in terms of how licensing works as opposed to chapter versus individual?
I think what
More
she's
so-
referring to is when a chapter is placing an order. So for example, Alyssa, if I'm understanding your question correctly, you're wondering here for as an example, we're going to purchase shirts for recruitment. So does the chapter cover the cost of those shirts, or does an individual member purchase the shirts? Is that the question that you're asking? And how do we draw the line there?
Yes.
Okay, so that is definitely something that has come up, not just for your chapter, right? I think it needs to be something that your chapter discusses and comes to a decision on. When does an individual purchase a shirt and when is it covered by, say, like your chapter dues, something like that. So it's definitely a chapter by chapter basis, but I think it's something that you could easily decide on, you know, right into your chapter constitution saying, you know, chapter dues cover XYZ and shirts for recruitment or not. Or, you know, it can say that all members are, you know, if you want a shirt, you buy it. If you don't want a shirt, you don't buy it and you don't get it. Hopefully that helps. If you have questions, I'm happy to talk through it further with you. Other questions? Awesome. Well, seeing none, I just want to thank everybody for taking the time to join us tonight, this evening, tonight, whatever it might be for you. It's the end of my workday over on the West Coast. So I really appreciate Dan and Eric taking the time to present to us today. Thank you to our members who have joined us. This is being recorded, so I will make sure to get this posted and shared to all of our active members and all of our new members who are joining us here soon, just so that you guys are all aware, can build that awareness, help make sure that, you know, we're going through those licensed vendors, getting awesome designs out there. And as always, any questions, please come my way. I am so happy to help you. But thank you. And yeah, we'll talk to everyone soon, and bye.